Hello, this is Pastor Frank Lewis, and welcome to another opportunity to find out about relationships. Under the name Relationships Revealed, I'm writing 7 books. I think you have heard about that. And the books that I'm writing are a book for marriage, a book for parents and children, a book for singles preparing for marriage, a book for a relationship with yourself, a book for a relationship with God, and a book for a relationship with your body, and a book for a relationship with money. Well, that's kind of covers the whole gambit, doesn't it? So I'm excited about this. It's a project that God has given me, and it's all based upon this book. And this book is the book that I wrote. It's now available, of course, on Amazon. And you should get a copy of this book because it's going to help you. It's really going to help you, especially when we get into the solutions to the problems that people have in their marriages. And so this book will really make a difference. A lot of people have read it. I have a lot of people that have said it's really a great book. So I want you to know about that. I also want you to know about my website that I have for Relationships Revealed. You can actually contact me. You can see on the right side the 7 books that I'm writing, but you can also contact me. And when you hit the Learn More button or the Want Help button, if you leave your phone number on the Want Help, then I will get in touch with you, or one of my people will, and one of the people that work with me. And so what we want to do is we just want to help you to have the knowledge that you need to be able to have better relationships. But in this case, we're talking about, because the first book that God has me writing is a book for married couples, a book for people that are in marriage. And the thing that we want to do is we want to have the goal that I want to see you have is a marriage, made in heaven marriage, but on earth. That you're actually experiencing a made in heaven marriage right here on earth. And most people don't. As you recall, last week we talked about codependency. Codependency is a big problem in marriage because what it really is it's that I don't believe that I can get my needs met because I need the things that I didn't get in childhood. I need acceptance, approval. I need love. I need love. My parents didn't give me love, so now I'm looking to a wife or a husband to give me love. And I said about codependency that it is and it's dependency. The goal of marriage is to have interdependency. Now, I'm not going to get into that today because that'll be down the road, but I am telling you, codependency is not going to work well in marriage. And the reason is because the real me is not married to the real you. And you say, what are you talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is this. Because I have been wounded in my childhood, or you've been wounded in your childhood, what ends up happening is that you cannot be the real person you were created to be. Why? Because you fear more pain, you live in shame, as I talked about last week. You can go back and look at that. And so the real me is not showing up. Well, if the real me is married, the false me, or the one with the facade and the mask, is married to you, who also have a facade and a mask, then it's just 2 people that are not really the real people that God created them to be in a marriage. Well, that's not going to work. You can see that just is not going to work. And so codependency is dangerous to a marriage. It's not going to work. It's going to cause real problems because I'm going to look for love from my spouse, or you're going to look for love from your spouse, and you're not going to be able to get the real love. You're going to get a facsimile of love you're not going to end up with what you're looking for. Because you have a hole in the soul. Remember, I talked about that, a hole in the soul. And your wife, by definition, according to behavioral scientists that are experts, your wife or your husband, an adult, cannot meet a childhood wound. Okay? And that's a problem. An adult cannot meet a childhood wound. So it's not going to work well. It's just not going to happen. And so one of the things that we talked about with codependency is that because I don't think I can get my needs met, love, acceptance, approval, sex, other needs, met properly, I extract them. I extract love, okay? I extract the things that I need through manipulation, through control, through walking on eggshells, through pleasing, all these different forms that it takes. And it really isn't by choice. And so love is a choice. Having needs trying to be met any other way than through a choice and through love isn't going to work. It's just not going to happen. So we spent a whole program on codependency. Today we're going to talk about how emotional triggers actually cause divorces, they cause pain, emotional triggers cause all kinds of problems in marriage. And I know that because that's what happened to me, and that's what drove me actually to finding out about brain science and finding out and studying brain science and really finding out why I was so triggered, so amazingly triggered with my wife. So the key I want you to know as we delve into emotional triggers is they come as a result of the pain that our parents brought us in one form or another, abuse, physically, emotionally, God forbid, sexually, neglect, unemotionally available parents. Those brought pain. When you have pain, that brings shame, and shame causes a situation where I believe things about myself that aren't true. But the pain is the cause, and Satan is at the root of all of it. So what we're going to look at today is emotional triggers. What I'm going to try to explain to you in a very short, concise way and make it very simplified so you can understand it is how our brains were designed by God. And it's going to help you because it's going to answer for you, I hope, that I can get this across to you today. It's going to answer questions you may have had for a long time. It sure did for me. It sure did for me. And I want to tell you that I ended up in a situation where I married my wife who has passed and gone to heaven. And what ended up happening is she would do certain things and it caused me to end up triggering. I want to share with you what happened to me, and then I'm going to share with you how brain science really unlocked my understanding. It's going to unlock your understanding too, and you're going to like it, I promise you. So I would trigger. She would say things, and I would go from 0 to 10 in nanoseconds. That's a billionth of a second, okay? And so what happened is I would go to anger. I would yell at her, and she would shut down. She didn't know how to do anger. Nobody had ever been angry like I was with her. So she would shut down, go to bed for a week to 10 days, and then, we would try it again. And, I would trigger again. Well, this went on for, we were married about a year and a half. This went on, and I would trigger and she would go to bed. Well, it's not a way to have a great marriage, especially a marriage that's just starting. And so what happened then was that I couldn't control this anger. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't control it. I'd been through therapy. I'd been through behavior modification. I'd actually been through deliverance. And I couldn't control this anger. So it was something more than a spirit, because I got that cast out. It was something more than the therapist could help me with, and it was something more than I could modify. And so what ended up happening was that I kept getting angry, and she kept reacting the way she did. And finally, she just told me she was going to call the police if I did this anymore. Well, I couldn't help doing this, and so I was very scared and concerned. And finally, she decided just to leave. She left for 8 months. We separated. Fortunately, I think we would have been divorced if we hadn't have known that God put us together, that He really wanted us to be married. So we made a commitment that we weren't going to give up on marriage. We just didn't know what in the heck to do. So in that process, I cried out to God, and He answered my prayer in a very unique way. I ended up finding out about what brain scientists tell us about, and getting introduced to brain science, and I got an understanding of how our brains work. Now I'm going to tell you how the brain, left side and the right side, work together, and what it's going to do is hopefully open your eyes like it did mine. And what it is that there's a right side of our brain, right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. You probably know that. And the right hemisphere, the right side of our brain, takes in all the experiences we've ever had, takes them all in to the right side. The left side of our brain actually comes up with explanations for everything that ever happens to us. What happens then is that the left side of our brain not only comes up with explanations, it comes up with interpretations, it comes up with judgments, and it comes up with assumptions. Just 4 things that you need to think about. And this is the way our left side of our brain is designed by God. Now, here's the problem. It's a problem because Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and they now had the knowledge of good and evil. They now knew in a different way. So we have been gifted by Adam and Eve to have the knowledge of good and evil. Okay? The problem is every explanation, every interpretation must go and does go through the knowledge of good and evil in a default way, kind of like your computer defaults. Well, every explanation and every assumption, every judgment goes through the knowledge of good and evil. Okay? Now, when it goes through the knowledge of good and evil, it now becomes a faulty judgment, a misinterpretation, a false judgment, and an incorrect assumption automatically. Bet you didn't know that. I sure didn't. But the reality to it is that that's what happens. Now, I'm going to share with you that what happened to me, and that will help you to understand what may have happened to you. I'm 2 years old, and I'm sitting in my high chair. My dad's feeding me peas, and he takes the spoon, puts the peas in my mouth, and what happens is I spit them out because I don't like the consistency and I don't like the taste. And so I spit them out. He slaps my hand and yells at me. Well, I have an explanation, the Lord showed me, that came to me that not that I did something bad, but that I was bad. And I deserve this. Well, that is not the truth. That is a faulty explanation. That is a very incorrect assumption, or it's a very incorrect interpretation. The problem is that it's all I've got. And so this is why Satan attacks or brings these painful situations into the lives of babies, infants, toddlers, and small children. They can't reason. They don't know how to be able to tell the difference between dad's problem and me being bad. So now what does Satan do? He reinforces my being bad over and over and over again through different situations and circumstances throughout my early childhood, and by the time I'm 12, I hate myself. Because my dad treats me like he hates me. He was a narcissistic doctor, rageaholic, went off almost every night after he had a couple of old fashions, which is a bourbon and soda, and he basically got loosened up. What ended up happening is that it was reinforced. And that's what's happened to you. It's happened to all human beings because Satan is very good at what he does. But here's the key. The key is that I ended up now believing that not that I did something bad, but that I am bad, reinforced over and over again until I hated myself. So I end up in a situation then where when my wife says something that triggers or causes the belief, the false belief, the misinterpretation or the faulty assumption to be triggered, what ends up happening is brain scientists, I discovered after research and after learning about this, they tell us that if there's something remotely similar that happens in the present that happened in the past, it will bring all the pain of the past event, the painful event, and the pain of the false belief that I am bad, that will come forward into my consciousness, and it'll come forward in nanoseconds. So I would believe then that what my wife told me was she trying to hurt me. You're believing that. I'm telling you right now. It's happened so fast, you can't differentiate the fact that this is not coming from, I couldn't, and you can't, from your husband or wife, okay? You just can't until you get more of a knowledge of what's really happening, which is I'm going to tell you the basis today, and then we're going to go into it later down the road. So what is the basis? The basis is that if something remotely similar that happens in the present, that was in the past, then like I said, it comes crashing into the brain and it shuts the left side of the brain down. All my reasoning goes away. All the ability to think properly goes away. Some people have said, well, I just lost my mind. Well, they're not too far off. Just lost their mind. What happens is the reasoning goes, and I will do whatever I did to survive as a child. And that for me was finally at 12, I ended up getting very angry. So when my wife said what she did, it triggered what my father had done to me, and I ended up yelling at her. Why did I yell at her? I yelled at her because I was pushing her away because it was so painful as the pain of the events of my past came crashing into my mind. It was so painful that I needed to push her away. That's why anger, you may have, your husband or your wife may have gotten angry at you with that kind of result. Well, the reason is because they're pushing you away because it's so hurtful, okay? And that's anger is a protection. So I pushed her away, and I didn't realize until I studied brain science more that, and it makes sense when you think about it, she says something, I trigger, it comes into my mind, shuts down the left side, and what ends up happening is I go to anger. She gets yelled at, she goes and shuts down. Because behavioral scientists tell us that we will fight, which I did, will run out of the room or run away, or we will freeze. Well, my wife basically froze, and she went to bed, okay? You'll do one of those three things. That's what they tell us. That's what the experts tell us. So here's the problem. The problem is it my wife triggering me, or is it my belief, my faulty explanation that's being triggered? Well, you're going to find out, and in the days to come, I'm going to really share with you. But today, I'm going to tell you, it was inside of me. It's not anymore. I've dealt with these things. I've gotten unresolved emotional pain resolved, and I know how to do that. I'm an expert at this. So the reality to it is that My wife says what she says, I trigger. So is it my wife's fault that I trigger? Or is it something inside of me that she's just lighting the fuse and the bomb's going off in me? Well, the truth of the matter is, it's not my wife. See, I thought my wife was doing it on purpose. That's why I pushed her away. That's why I yelled at her. I felt like she was doing it on purpose. It felt to me, because I couldn't differentiate between the nano, it's a billionth of a second. It happens like that. I couldn't differentiate the fact that it was inside of me because I didn't have any knowledge. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. You're perishing perhaps in your marriage, or your marriage isn't good because of these emotional triggers and you don't know what to do with them. You think that if I divorce, then I'll be fine. That's not the case. The case is you're going to end up having emotional triggers when you get into the next relationship. So the reality to it is this, okay? My wife is not causing the trigger. The trigger is being caused by something that she's doing or saying, but it's inside of me. So here's what God showed me. He doesn't want me or you believing something that's not true. So he designed our brains so that when I experience something in the present that is not true and it triggers the pain from the past and it shuts down the left side of my brain, that is going to be hurtful. I'm going to be hurting in my brain, okay? The emotional intensity actually shuts down the left side of the brain. So when that happens, that's telling me I'm believing something about myself that's not true. God doesn't want me believing something about myself that's not true. So he designed our brains so that the left side of the brain shuts down when emotional intensity hits, and I end up in pain. Because what is God after? He wants me to find out, why is this happening and what can I do about it? That's what you need to do. Find out, why is this happening and what can I do about it? With your husband or your wife. You need to find out, because it's going to cause major problems in your marriage. It just will, because it's not going to be controlled. You could say to your husband, well, you got to stop that. Well, he can't stop it. I couldn't stop it, even with the threat of the police. It has to be resolved. The pain of the past have to be resolved. Then there won't be any trigger. But here's the thing. Not only did God design our brains to have pain so that we would go, get the resolution eventually. We would go to him and get the resolution. But he also showed me, as you can probably figure it out, maybe you didn't, but here's the truth. My wife is not the problem. I have a problem. I believe things that aren't true, okay? I have false beliefs. You can't cast out false beliefs, so don't think deliverance is the answer. It's not. It's part of the answer, but it's not going to cast out false belief. Inner healing isn't going to change false beliefs, okay? I think I already talked about that. But here's the key. The key is that my wife is my gift. See, my wife saying what she said helps me to understand I'm believing things that aren't true. Well, God doesn't want me believing things that aren't true about me, because then I believe that the things I believe, that I'm not valuable, not important, not worthy, I'm a defective, that's the things I believed. Well, he doesn't want me believing that because it's not true. So what happens is my wife and your husband can be a gift and are a gift when you're triggered, because you wouldn't know that you were triggering if they didn't say or do something to cause you to trigger. But the truth of the matter is this: you need to recognize that your spouse is not your problem. Don't divorce them. Don't think that you are going to change them, because what I believe, the brain scientists tell me, is under my conscious thought. It is, some people call it the subconscious. It's under my conscious thought. And so if it's under my conscious thought, can I control it? No, because I don't even know it exists. My wife and I would talk about actually stepping into a landmine. Well, this is like a landmine. All of a sudden you're triggered and you don't even know why. But now you can know that it's inside of you, it comes from a false belief, and it's really because of unresolved emotional pain. So this trigger, emotional trigger, can be diffused and can be healed. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the future. That's why I wrote this book. So you'd be very wise to get the book. So unresolved emotional pain is at the core root of every problem you're going to have in your marriage, every problem you have in any relationship. And I wanted to spend time today unraveling the problem that I had so you don't have the same problem, which is thinking my wife was the problem. You may think your husband is the problem or your wife is the problem, but they're not. It's what they're believing that's the problem, and God wants them healed enough so you can have a marriage without emotional triggers. And you can. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the weeks ahead, is how do you actually diffuse and eventually heal the pain of childhood so you really don't have emotional triggers. And emotional triggers will keep you from having a great marriage, keep you from having great relationships, and now you know the answer. Now you know why, and I'm really glad you do. I'm really excited for you because it is going to change how you operate. But remember, you can't willpower and change a false belief. You cannot do it. So you're going to know that the truth will set you free. And this is the truth. I've experienced it. I know it. I experienced it in my marriage. I have experienced it in other parts. And the truth has set me free. It'll set you free.